Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today in our second video and our second heart. Today we will be making this three-dimensional heart, um, completely freeform. We're not going to be using any cookie cutters. We're just going to be using our needles and our felting mat and our wool. So pick out a fun color or use the same color that you used for our first project, and let's get poking. And I am going to use the Corydale. What color should we use? Let's use, we're doing a lot of pink. How about this aqua color? I love this aqua color. I'm going to pull off a couple strands of this aqua. And if we don't use it all, we don't use it all. We'll just put it back in with the roving. We're not going to just bunch all of this together all in one. We're going to do this a little bit at a time. So you want to make a tight roll. I'm going to grab my 36. I did find with the Corydale, or at least with this color, I mean, it could differ. I did prefer the 36 at first for a good while. So we're going to tightly roll this, and I do leave the top a little bit looser, just because I want to be able to sculpt this part of the heart. So we're going to make like a ice cream cone. We don't need as much wool toward the bottom. So if you want to put your little finger protectors on, you can. I'm not going to. I'm going to live dangerously, I guess. And I like to do just kind of like a stay poke. We're just rough poking it at this point. If you squish the fibers together, they felt together a little bit faster. Right. And so we want this to be a point, like this part. So we're going to poke on the sides, and then we're going to poke down. Sides, down. We're going to flip it. And it's not completely on its back. We've just turned it a little bit. So we're going to poke it in on the sides. All right. Poke it on the sides. We want to make this bottom bit a little bit smaller, so we're going to concentrate on this. I mean, your heart is going to be the shape of your heart. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. It can be fatter, it can be skinnier. It can be anything that you want. With needle felting, it is better to kind of use less first, because you can always build it out a little bit at a time. That's easier than trying to take it off and then putting it back on. So now this part is really squishy, and we want to make sure this part is getting firmer. So we're gonna, oops, getting a cramp in my hand. We're going to squish this down, because we want to make sure all these fibers are getting locked in. Be careful of your fingers. Once we get this kind of roughed in, we're going to move to our 38. So I like to basically force all of these fibers down, flip it over, all right. And when you concentrate in one spot, you're going to get heavy felting. I'm just going to push this in the center because I want this to be that divot. Make sure I'm in the screen. Put this divot in. All right, I'm going to move to my 38. And want to move some of these fibers down. You do have to poke the Corriedale a little bit more. It takes a little bit more finessing. It's not quite as coarse as the Romney. Romney would probably be between a medium and a coarse because it is considered a long staple. So the actual length of the fiber itself. And they measure it by microns, and that tells you how coarse the wool is. The finer the wool, the lower the number. Merino can be like 19. Right. We're also gonna kind of separate the little rounded bits. Be careful of your fingers. We're gonna squish this down further. You can get multi-needle holders. I have a couple. I use them for larger surfaces. Or if I'm trying to felt a flat sheet, like a flat piece of color, which is not my favorite thing to do, quite honestly. It's kind of funny. This blue color is coming together a little bit slower than that magenta color. And it could just be where the wool came off of the sheep. All right. This is starting to get firm. It's looking very fuzzy right now. Lots of air pockets in there. My husband is making chocolate chip cookies with macadamia nuts. And they're starting to smell very good. All right, we're gonna start building up this part, the little rounded bits. All right, so I am gonna break this up a little bit. Into smaller pieces. All right. So with the Corriedale, actually with any of my wool, sometimes I like to kind of give it a pre-poke before I add it to something. All right, we're gonna do a little pre-poke. We're gonna bunch it here up at the top, and we're just doing one side at a time. So here's my little cleft. Still looking pretty wonky, but that's okay. We can work with wonky. I'm going to flatten this part out just a little bit. Try not to overpoke this much, because if I'm going to overpoke anything, it's going to be right here. All right, take a little bit more. Right, I'm going to add it to this same side that I'm working on. Accentuate the cleft. We're getting a little bit closer with our shape. Once we get our shape in, then we're going to start poking to smooth. I need a little bit more wool on this side. This to be a little bit bigger. All right, we are getting there. All right. Do here. Careful of your fingers. It's very surprising to go through your piece if you're if you're holding on to it and you're poking and you go through a loose portion and hit your finger. That's very surprising in not a very nice way. All right, we almost have our shape done. General shape, and then we're going to go through and neaten it up. Now, if you happen to have a stash of wool supplies and you have just a plain white core wool, and then maybe if you have some merino that's colored, you can absolutely make your heart out of your plain colored core wool and then put your pretty color on top. You just want to be very intentional with your poking. When you have a light colored base, sometimes you can pull up some of the lighter colors on top of your whatever color is on top. So just an FYI. Or not pull it up, but push it through. All right. This side is squishier. it's the right size. I feel like we might just need to add a little bit more wool to that side rather. I'm just going to add a little bit there. So do you see how we have kind of like a harsh line where I added that wool? We're going to just kind of pretend it's not there for the time being. And I'm going to show you how to disguise that. But that's going to come after we've been smoothing for a bit. Because sometimes you can just smooth it out. It just takes more poking. Make sure you're poking on the inside of the curve. Otherwise, that's going to stay loose. And we don't want it to be loose. And gently push it. I don't want to adjust my shape over much. So I'm going to gently push it. I can feel some soft spots here. Because the side has more wool, I think. Also a little bit firmer. We are getting there. I'm going to add just a little bit because it's kind of squishy, and I know when I push it in, it's going to get smaller. So we're just going to add a little tiny bit of wool to this side. It'll look bigger than the other side for a minute. Yes, this is a lot firmer than that side. So we are going to work on smoothing it out. And then once we've smoothed it out some, then we'll have a better idea if we need to do any more shaping. And I want to make it puffy, so I am going to end up adding more in the middle, but I want to firm this up first. It's a little bit easier. I don't want it to be so flat. I want it to be puffy. Last night when I was making my samples, it took me about an hour and a half to do all 3 pieces. But I was also not talking. And worrying about making sure I'm in frame. You see how I'm poking all around? I want to make sure whatever is, I kind of imagine like where I want the outline to be. And anything that's sticking out beyond that imaginary outline is getting poked in. And that's kind of how I shape it. And I'm going to poke in the direction I want to move the fibers. So poking like this is going to make it a little bit shorter and a little bit chubbier because I'm taking these fibers that are still kind of loose at the bottom and I'm poking them up into the body of the heart. I want to round this just a little bit. I don't want it quite ice cream coney, but I also don't want it flat. Oh yeah, this is firming up very nicely. This is my favorite point where it's like almost to the firmness. It has a certain feel when you put the needle in. And it just makes me happy. All my endorphins are having like a little party. All right, let's get to this point. And like I said, we're just practicing making our shape, seeing the shape that you want to make and poking it into that shape. And then learning to see what's missing or what needs to be refined. Like I have a little bit of an indent here, so I'll probably add some more wool there. We have a little fluffy spot on the back. This was, I think, is where I added the wool, and I told you I would show you how to disguise it, but it looks like the smoothing process has done that. Might have a little bit of a line there, but I'm going to add a little bit of wool there anyway, so I'm not terribly worried about it. But that's basically what you would do. You would take just a little thin piece of wool and place it over the part that has, I guess, like a seam. Oh, look at it. I just love it. All right. I want to build up the center so it's nice and poofy. And I'll probably build up this part just a little bit. And I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. I don't want to do a whole lot. And I'm still using that 38 because the wool is firm enough now. And I'm not going to felt it completely flat. I'm going to kind of felt it from the outside to the center because I want to push those fibers to the center where I want it to be chubby. If we have a seam, we'll cover it. But it seems like just going over it and making sure that all of our fibers are nicely poked in. And remember, we're just doing the surface. We're not pushing this needle all the way through. We're just doing the surface. You're going to look for any of your airy spots. Poke those down. Ooh, we're getting a little belly. All right. So there's a little bit of a low spot here, which is where I said I wanted to build up anyway. My hair keeps tickling my face. I'm sorry. It looks like I picked up a little bit of the pink fiber. That's okay. Okay, so I want to fill in this side a little bit. I'm going to push the fibers into the area that I want it to fill. I'm going to round the edges just by poking around them. Oh, that looks better. All right, I'm going to fill out this side now. Kind of round it out. And we're going to do that the same way. Right. And there we have it. We have our little heart. So I think I'm going to go over it with the 40 real quick. Um, but you can kind of tell the difference. This one I went over with a 40 and then used the little iron to press it down. So let's do that real quick. All right. Okay, that feels warm. Let's not burn ourselves. So you don't have to do it this way, but I like the finish. Okay. And there we have it. Your little puffy heart. I think it would be really cute to make a bunch of these and put some wood beads between them and put a string through them. You would need to use like a doll needle or an upholstery needle to get through the wool. But that would be really cute. We have those. So that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed making your little puffy heart. I know I did. There are lots of things that you can do with these hearts. Check out my Instagram at Woolgathering with Crissy, and I'm hoping to make some projects, finished projects with these little things. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you in the next video where we will be making a 2D felted heart on some 100% wool. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.